All right, NFL preview, NFL review for the week 7. I think it was for the NFL season. No, I think it is week 7 now. Yeah, so week 7's coming up. That was week 6 that we just got done with. Pretty good week of football. Wasn't that great of matchups, I'd say. But there's some games that ended up being some pretty good games. This was probably one of the first weeks where Red Zone was a little bit less action than usual, but that's just because more buys happened this week. A good amount of buys were this week. But we started off Thursday with a good 4-1 versus 4-1 matchup in the Eagles and Panthers, and the main difference in this game was just Cam Newton turned the ball over in the red zone. Well, in his red zone, gave the Eagles 2 easy touchdowns. Basically, those 14 points, was the difference in the game to me. Panthers played them close. Panthers could have definitely won the game, but those turnovers in their red zone, not they weren't in the Eagles' red zone on their side of the field, gave the Eagles very short field, and then Wentz and Ertz were able to capitalize. I think that was the main difference in the game. Good game by the Eagles. They got Redskins on Monday night. It'll be a good one. Dolphins, Falcons. So this was a real surprise. I said start Falcons defense, and it was looking good in the first half. Dolphins were looking pretty stagnant. Their run game was somewhat going, but I didn't really, it's like, who cares? But then in the second half, Cutler started to make some good throws, and they were really moving the ball. The Falcons also were shooting themselves in the foot. They had a punt go off the snapper's ass, and that gave the Dolphins great field position. Dolphins just did enough in the second half. They kicked, I think, 3 field goals. They really only got, I think, maybe they got 2 touchdowns, maybe 1. But Falcons just didn't do anything in the second half. Ryan, he led them down the field late. They could have tied the game 20-20, but he threw a pick. That was a game Falcons probably would have won if they could get it to overtime, but they couldn't. Julio Jones has been very disappointing this year, definitely fantasy-wise. And the Falcons have been pretty disappointing this year at the same time. I think they're 3-2 now. Or no, not 3-2. They are they're 3-2 now. So, a little bit lower than you projected them, and then they have the Patriots coming up, which I think is a winnable game for the Falcons, with the fact that their offense is explosive as it is. One thing that the Dolphins did a really good job of is they shut the run game down. The Falcons did get it going in the first half, but second half they couldn't get the run game going, and that was the key. Made Matt Ryan have to throw the ball a lot. Trubisky and the Bears pulled it out against the Ravens. And the thing about this game that was the best was the fact that they didn't come back late, or it wasn't anything like the Ravens gave the game to the Browns. Now the Ravens, they scored 2 TDs late off of a punt return and a kick return. So 14 points, good if you start Ravens defense this week. You got 2 touchdowns off of that. And that was a good start. But Bears were able to come out on top. Mitch Trubisky was able to handle the game. They've got a real good running game, and they've got a pretty good defense. And they did have a defensive touchdown. So Bears looked good, and Trubisky pretty good at rolling out of the pocket, did pretty good running the ball a bit when he had a chance. Flacco, I think the question you got to start asking yourself as a Ravens fan, how long are we going to keep doing this? Flacco does not look like an NFL quarterback. He basically manages the game. They run the ball a shit ton. And it looks like Harbaugh is about to be a college coach like his brother, because he looks like he's running a college offense, something that would be successful at something like Michigan or, a Big Ten school. But what he's running is not successful in NFL. Like, I don't know if he understands, man, my quarterback sucks ass and I have to deal with it, or, does he need it? Does he want a new quarterback? But I hadn't seen Flacco make a big time throw all year. Fantasy wise, he averages about 10 points. He does nothing. They run the ball a shit ton. And so let's talk about Texans, Browns. Texans destroyed the Browns. Magic Man Deshaun Watson jumped all over them. Tough game. Will Fuller got another TD. That was good if you had him fantasy. Vikings-Packers, probably the biggest storyline of the week with Aaron Rodgers going down. It's talked about he's going to be out for the rest of the year. I think he'll be out probably till about week 16, week 15. Around then he'll come back. He'll probably shred his last two opponents, whoever those are, and then they'll creep into the playoffs. And this year is one of those things. Cowboys, with the loss of Zeke, they're weak. I'm not completely convinced on the Eagles, even though they're 5-1. Redskins started slow, but I think Redskins are a good team. I think the Redskins might be the best team out of the NFC East with Zeke going down, and the fact that the offensive line for the Cowboys just isn't as much, and the defense is a big issue. I think a lot of people don't talk about Cowboys defense, but that's an issue to me. And with Rodgers going down, that completely destroys any fantasy games for Packers. Jordy Nelson's value goes down. Devontae Adams is down. Even Aaron Jones and Ty Montgomery, those guys' value goes down. So fantasy-wise, it doesn't only kill the Packers in the season, but it also kills anything fantasy-wise for Packer fans or Packer people using the Packers. It definitely opens the doors for the Lions and Vikings. I think the Bears are not good enough this year, but Lions and Vikings, and these two teams are very Jekyll and Hyde. Lions, they're great one week, they're shitty the next, and at the same time, I think the Lions kind of started hot. So, give the Lions their due. They did make a good comeback last week. Their defense is very strong, like I've talked about all year. But, I don't know if Stafford can get it done on the offensive end. He's looking a little bit beat up at this point, and it's real early still. So, they need a bye week, and they need it real soon. I think they got a bye week too. Vikings, we don't ever know what we're going to get out of the Vikings. They got a solid defense, pretty suspect offense, dealing with the injuries of Cook, and then they didn't have Diggs last week. We'll see how long Diggs is out. I don't think Diggs will be out long. But yeah, talking about Packers, Vikings, I kind of elaborated this in my waiver wire video a bit. I think if Brett Hundley would have had an entire game, if they would have known, going to the game, okay, Hundley's our quarterback, we're going to have to do something with Hundley, I think the game plan would have been a little bit different. I think they would have been a little bit more run heavy. I think the game plan would have been a little bit different. I think the game plan this next weekend is going to be a little bit better. The Packers are going to surprise a little bit and be better than you thought they were. I think that they kind of got caught off guard really bad, and they looked really bad because they had Brett Hundley in a situation where they really didn't think they were going to have to play Brett Hundley. But everybody's going to really pull weight, I think. I think Packers are going to be all right. It's going to suck not having Rodgers, but to think that the Packers can't compete with this Lions and Vikings team, I think is a little bit crazy. I think that they can compete. Hundley didn't necessarily do bad. They were real run heavy in the time that he came in, and he did throw a TD to Adams, but he did throw, I think, 3 picks. He's very young, very inexperienced. It's going to happen. We'll see if Packers decide to bring somebody in, But going back to that game, Vikings, Jerick McKinnon, if you started him, that was a good start for you. He had 2 TDs. He was the main little, athletic, back that did the thing in that game. Without Diggs, Thielen had a good game. Adam Thielen had a good game, but it was mainly McKinnon that had the game for the Vikings, and it was mainly the defense too for Vikings. Lions Saints. Very weird game. Saints defense is accumulated in fantasy, I think, over 50 points the last 2 times that they played. They had a bye week in between that, but they scored, I think, 26 or so against the Dolphins, and then they scored 32. They had like 3 defensive touchdowns. Stafford looked bad in this game. He just didn't look like he was all there mentally. Giving up he gave up basically, he got sacked in the end zone, but then he lost it, so it was a fumble. That was a touchdown. He had a pick. He had a fumble later that he got stripped, and they basically turned that into points. He had a interception, I think, on his end of the field that got turned into points. I think, the defense accumulated probably 35 of those 52 points for the Saints, and they just jumped on them really early. Now, Lions did make a good comeback. Lions got, I think, 2 defensive touchdowns, 1 punt return, one real good play where they picked Breeze on the Saints goal line and returned that about a yard. So they made a good comeback, but it just wasn't enough. Big surprise in this game. I thought it would be a high scoring, thought it would be a good game, but I thought it was going to be Stafford versus Breeze, just airing it out. Not a defensive game like it was. Patriots-Jets, Jets kind of got hoed in this one. They basically scored a touchdown and got it taken away from them. And if anything, the thing is they called it a touchback, gave the Patriots the ball. If anything, it should have been, them at the 1 or to me, it just didn't make a whole lot of sense why the Patriots got the ball at the 20. That's what didn't make any sense to me. He crossed the goal line. He had the ball. Should have been a touchdown. That's not here nor there. Jets honestly could have won this game. When you look at it, they went up 14-0. Patriots made their comeback. Gronk and Tom got hot together, scored 2 TDs. They went up 21-14. And then, then they went 24-14. They went up 24-14. Then Jets had that play where they didn't score a touchdown, where they should have scored a touchdown. They got the ball back, kicked a field goal, and then they were driving down the field at the end of the game. I think McCown either threw a pick or there's 4 downs because they weren't trying to kick a field goal or whatever. But that's the situation where if they would have had that touchdown earlier, that could have been a position for them to win the game. Patriots are very suspect this year. They are not the team that they were. Now, I will say they always struggle with the Jets. The Jets game plan for them well, but at the same time, this is getting a little scary now. We're talking about a close game with the Jets after close games after close game. I don't know how long Tom can do it. I feel like a 40-year-old Tom would be a little bit more better for him to have the ability to lax a little bit, and he just doesn't have that ability. Redskins, 49ers, 49ers again gave the team they played a game, and I think they're going to give the Cowboys a game this Sunday. When you talk about Redskins went up 17-0, 49ers, they got CJ Beathard came in and they scored a touchdown before half. He drove them down the field, and then they got a field goal out of half. And then in the third, Redskins started killing themselves with the turnovers that they love to do. And then it was 17-17. Kirk Cousins was playing like Kirk today, and he got it done. He scored a touchdown late that sealed it. 49ers scored another touchdown to make it look close, but just not enough time. Good win for the Redskins. It was a game that the Redskins couldn't lose. A tough game if they lose. 49ers, again, how many weeks in a row is that they lost by less than 3 points or less, so they're Shanahan's definitely making strides. He's doing a lot with a little. Carlos Hyde had a big game. We'll see what happens with them going forward. Maybe they'll get their first win against the Cowboys, a Cowboys team coming off a bye, but a little bit shell-shocked with losing Zeke, and then, the fact the offensive line really is not playing the way it should be, and then I'm not impressed with the defense at all. The back end may be worse than the Raiders at this point. So let's talk about the afternoon games of Sunday. Buccaneers-Cardinals. This ended up being a close game. Fitzpatrick came in and really tried to get it close. It was 31-0 Cardinals. Larry Fitzgerald was going off. Adrian Peterson was going off. Like I talked about earlier, where I'm not that sold on the NFC this year. I'm not sold. I'm not completely. If Aaron Rodgers can come back late and play in the playoffs, if the Packers can will their way to the playoffs, this NFC to me is looking somewhat weak. And you talk about, the teams that have been powerhouses in the last couple of years, the Falcons, Seahawks, Cowboys, Packers, they're all kind of on the downs right now. And they may just be a hot and cold type. This is just when they're cold. But to me, they're on their downs, and there's some teams on the ups. You talk about the Eagles, you talk about the Rams, you talk about Redskins, Vikings, even Panthers. You can throw Panthers in there. Saints. Saints have really figured out their offense, getting rid of Adrian Peterson, adding, just sticking with Ingram and Kamara. Those guys had huge games on Sunday. I think they continue to have huge games. Another team I want to put on this list is Cardinals. Cardinals, we kind of wrote them off. They lost some games pretty handily, but they were 2-3 before this week. Now they're 3-3 with the big win over the Bucs. They're in a division where Seahawks, Rams are all right, but we'll see who comes out. I think Adrian Peterson, the addition of him to the Cardinals is huge. I didn't think he'd make that big of an impact as soon as he did, but he's here and he's going to be very impactful. So watch the Cardinals in a weak NFC this year. And going back to this game, Bucks came back. Winston was not having a good game, and he came out with a shoulder injury. But Doug Martin and Cameron Bray were serviceable, good fantasy players this week. And the funny thing is, Bucks had a chance to kick a field goal right before half, but they were down 31-0 or 24-0, so they didn't do it. But if they would have kicked it, and I think if a couple of things would have gone their way, they could have won this game. I didn't think they realized that they were going to come back the way they did. Rams Jaguars. I watched this game just this morning. It was a fucking boring ass game. There's a couple of big plays that happened. Like Fournette had a big run right after a Farrell Cooper return for a touchdown by the Rams. Then the Rams. Then Chris Ivory had a pretty long little screen pass play. And then, the Rams blocked a punt and then returned it, I think. But other than that, a bunch of 3-and-outs, real boring. Nothing really going on. Todd Gurley had a tough day. Fournette, other than his big run, had a pretty tough day. Real defensive game. I thought it was kind of high scoring, but other than those big plays that happened, it was a Jags and Rams defensive game. Steelers Chiefs. So I called this one. I thought Steelers would bounce back and beat the Chiefs. I think they match up well. Obviously, things we can think back on. Chiefs' last 2 losses have been to the Steelers. Steelers know how to play against them, and they did exactly what I talked about, where they sat on the ball. They didn't let them have the ball. You take away. You don't let the Chiefs run the ball. You don't let the Chiefs get comfortable with what they're doing. Make them be behind by a good amount. Now, if this game was a quarter longer, I think the Chiefs might have came back and won. The Chiefs are definitely a better team than the Steelers, but on that day, the fact that they had 6 yards in the first half, they had the ball for 5 or 6 minutes when they couldn't get first off, they couldn't get anything going. And then every time the Steelers touched the ball, they were just running it with Le'Veon, and Le'Veon was just gutting the Chiefs defense. Chiefs front 7, I think that's something that we need to be watching a little bit. Their offense is kind of taken off, and their defense is kind of getting a little bit of a pass lately. But they only give up 19 points. A lot of field goals. But Steelers are not explosive on the offense, and they got 2 of the most explosive players. But Big Ben, Big Ben had an all right game. But yeah, he definitely. I don't know about Big Ben moving forward. He does look like he's definitely on the older side at this point. But good game for them. Tough day for Hunt. He did good receiving wise, but tough day for Hunt, tough day for Hill, tough day for Kelsey. They shut down the guys that they needed to shut down, and Alex Smith just couldn't will the win. But Chiefs did come back. Chiefs made it close late. Chargers Raiders. This was a tough game for the Raiders. Raiders. Should have been in this game. They lost 17-16. Melvin Gordon has taken off fantasy-wise. He's obviously Rivers' favorite target. Rivers is definitely checking down to him a lot. And on third down, he throws to Keenan Allen a lot. That's kind of where that's going. Late in the game, Hunter Henry had some big catches for them. But this is a game the Chargers probably shouldn't have won. Raiders definitely moved the ball better than them, played better than them. But the main difference in the game is the Raiders kicker missed the extra point at the end of the game. And that would have made it 17-14 instead of 14-16. And then Chargers were able to get the ball late, and Rivers was able to will them down the field and orchestrate a game-winning drive to win 17-16. Good news, though, Raiders definitely moved the ball a lot better than they did. They shot themselves in the foot a couple times. They didn't look nervous. They didn't look like they were pressing oh, we really need to win this game. They look like they're a good team. They look like they know they're a good team. So, going forward with the Raiders, I think that they will bounce back. It's going to be tough with the division that they're in, but the fact that, the Broncos lost to the Giants, that helps them. And the Chargers, the Chargers have done good the last 2 weeks or so, but I don't think they're going to make a whole lot of noise moving forward. They win close games or lose close games. So that's how the Chargers are. Real exciting. And I don't know why the Los Angeles fans don't like the Chargers. I think every one of their games has gone down to the wire. But yeah, so and Marshawn Lynch is a big storyline, I think, for the Raiders. He hadn't been the guy that they thought that they were going to get. And I think that's really where they need to figure out what they're going to be doing, what's going to be going on going forward. Are they going to incorporate Jalen Richard a little bit more? But the run game is a real issue. They can't get any balance. But good news that Carr came back in 1 week after just being out 1 week, and he looked like he was the leadership that they needed. Giants Broncos, Giants just jumped on the Broncos. Funny game here because Broncos were at home, projected to win by 13.5, and they just came out and didn't play. Simeon got hurt, and Brock Osweiler had to come in before half. That was when the Giants went up like 20-3 on a pick six, or it went 7. They went up 17-3 on a pick six. And then the second half, nothing really happened, just a defensive game. Evan Ingram had a real good game for the Giants. He was probably their top receiver, 5 catches, 82 yards. Demaryius Thomas had a real good game. Emmanuel Sanders got hurt in the second half. Sanders was having a good game, but he got hurt in the second half. Demaryius Thomas, 10 catches, 133 yards, so he had a pretty good game. Broncos looked really bad in this game. They gave up a ton of rushing yards also. Darkwa had a huge game. He had 117 yards on 20 carries. So tough game. They couldn't get the running game going either. Giants defense really showed up this week, played really well, really wanted to get that win. It's really surprising because you really thought the Giants were going to continue on that losing streak. Titans Colts last night. It was a pretty good game throughout. Now, it was funny because, it was a close game, but you think about it, and Mariota couldn't even use his legs. He never even tried to leave the pocket. He literally stood there in the pocket and threw the ball the entire game, and they still, handled them pretty easily. The run game started to get going as the game went on. That's kind of the Titans' thing, I think, is this run game. They need to continue to get that going. Derrick Henry had a big game, 131 yards, a touchdown. He broke a big run late when the game was basically already over. Decker finally had a good game, 7 catches, 88 yards. And, running back wise, Gore, he had 10 carries for 49 yards. Marlon Mack got to play a little bit, waiver wire type shit. Mack and Henry are some guys you might add if you need a back. Brissett had a serviceable game, and, I think bigger storyline for the Colts. Colts were in this game throughout. It was 22-22 late before they lost 36-22. Great game from Ryan Suckup. But yeah, Colts were kind of in control of this game for most of it. The Colts defense has been somewhat of a surprise to me this year. They gave up 5 field goals, I think, through the first 3 quarters of this game, and that really kept them in it. And it ended up being, like I said, 22-22. But then the Titans scored a touchdown, and then Colts couldn't score, and then Titans took over again. So this game was closer than it looked. It looked like a 14-point game, closer than it looked. But the Titans were kind of one-dimensional with Mariota not able to use his legs. But a good win for them. It would have been really tough if they would have lost this game. The fact that the Colts weren't using Luck again, and Mariota playing, it would have been a real tough one for them to lose. All right, so to talk about the next week, Chiefs-Raiders. I like Chiefs. Chiefs coming off a loss, but Raiders really need a big win. So this is a tough game to call, but I'm gonna take the Raiders on the road. I'm continuing to jumping off this Chiefs bandwagon. I think this is just one of those games. It's a short week. I think Raiders need the game way more than the Chiefs need it. And the Raiders fared pretty good against the Chiefs last year. I think Carr. I think Carr wills them to a win this week. I'll take Raiders. I think the front 7 can shut down Hunt and the other weapons that they have. Okay, so then on Sunday, we got Bucks, Bills. I'll take Bills for sure. Bills were on a bye week last week. That's something I really like. Teams off of bye weeks, 2 weeks to prepare. That's something you always got to incorporate when you're looking at things. I'll take Bills over Bucks. Bucks struggled last week. Now, Bucks are very Jekyll and Hyde. They may come out of nowhere and have a huge week this week. But I'll take Bills off the bye week, and I'm hoping LaShawn McCoy gets his first TD of the year. I think that should be a focal point of the Bills to get that. Stephen Hauschka should have another big game for them. Panthers, Bears. I think Bears is going to give them hell. I think the Bears defense is good. I think Newton will have turnovers throughout, but I'll take Panthers to get it done. I think a close game though. I'll take Panthers. Titans, Browns for sure. Taking Titans. Titans defense I think is a must add this week if you need a defense going against the Browns. So add Titans D. I think Mariota has a good game. I think Derrick Henry gets a good amount of runs if he's someone available in fantasy leagues. DeMarco Murray was good, but it sounds like he's dealing with an injury, so we'll see what goes on with that going forward. Browns are going to get destroyed. Saints Packers. Like I said, I'm excited about this game. I really want to see how the Packers come about, how they handle the offense going forward. With Aaron Rodgers out, if they go run heavy, if they let Brett throw the ball. But I think Saints. Definitely, the defense is playing better, and I think Breeze and I think the run game that they have, I think is gonna be able to beat the Packers. I think it's gonna be a tough week for the Packers this week. I'll take Saints. Talking Colts, Jags. I'll take Colts. I don't like the Jags at all. Jags have a good defense, and they may shut down the Colts and really help the Jags get going. But I'm going to take Colts. I'm hoping Luck will start this week. It's week 7. He was supposed to be out 6 weeks. We'll see if it's time for Luck to go. If not, like I said, Brissett's been serviceable all year. He hadn't been a bad quarterback. So I'll still take Colts over the Jags. Colts are at home. Cardinals, Rams, huge game here. We'll see how Adrian Peterson does against the defensive line of the Rams. I think that's going to be the main matchup. I think Larry Fitzgerald could potentially have a big game. I think Larry Fitzgerald will continue to have big games with the fact that their running game is back on. They can't play as much in a zone type because they have to worry about the run more. I'll take Cardinals in this game. Rams are looking for a loss. They've won some games they probably shouldn't have this year so far, so I'll take Cardinals to win. Jets Dolphins, this is a tough game to pick because Dolphins coming off a win, but I just don't like what I've seen out of the Dolphins this year. And the last time they played the Jets, they got killed. I'm gonna take Jets to win the game. I like what I've seen out of the Jets the last couple of weeks. I'm going to take Jets. Ravens Vikings for sure. Vikings. I'm not at all impressed with the Ravens offense. I think this will be a real defensive game. Ravens have a good defense. Vikings have a good defense. But I'll take Vikings. They got better weapons on offense. Cowboys 49ers. This is going to be a dandy. I think 49ers are definitely going to cover. I think Cowboys got six points right now. I think 49ers are a good cover. I think if you pick the 49ers the last 4 or 5 weeks, they probably cover for you. But it's gonna be a game too. A lot of people like Cowboys. A lot of people are gonna pick Cowboys to beat the Niners. Be a good game to pick right here. And I'll take Cowboys to win, but 49ers are probably going to give them hell. Bengals, Steelers, I'll for sure take Steelers. I think Steelers run all over them. I think the Steelers continue to get right. But be careful, Bengals are coming off a bye week, so they got 2 weeks to prepare for that. And the Steelers are riding high off the win over the Chiefs. Broncos, Chargers. I think Chargers come back after the Week 1 loss to the Broncos. I think Chargers win this game right here. It'll be a close one. Broncos on the road. Broncos dealing with injuries with Emmanuel Sanders. If Broncos aren't at home, they don't play good, and they were at home last week and they didn't play good, so I'm taking Chargers. Chargers have been resilient. It'll probably be a close game. Chargers doesn't blow out anybody, but I'll take Chargers to win. Seahawks, Giants. I'll take Seahawks. I think Giants defense bounces back. I think they have a good game. I think Seahawks kind of start slow like they always do. It'll let the Giants get into the game. I don't think the Giants are going to run the ball that well against the Seahawks defense. I think it's going to be a pretty good defensive game, and I'll take Seahawks to win late. Russell Wilson will be heroic late. Falcons, Patriots. I'm taking Falcons in this one. I hadn't been impressed with the Patriots at all this year. I think the Falcons are going to be really upset about the loss last weekend, coming off the bye week. I'll take Falcons to beat the Patriots in Foxborough. I don't like what I've seen out of the Patriots defense, and I think that the Falcons offense is going to basically dismantle it. I think it's going to be a close game. I just think it's going to be really tough. It's going to be another week of Brady having to battle against the odds, and I'll take Falcons. Redskins, Eagles, big Monday night game. I'm going with the Redskins. I feel like I pick against the Eagles every week because I'm just waiting for that game that they have where they lose, where they have a bad game. Opening spreads 5 for the Eagles. I'd take the hell out of that. For the Redskins, Redskins have looked really good. They played really bad week 1 when they did lose to the Eagles. So I'm taking Redskins. I think Kurt continues to play like Kurt. They'll probably have Rob Kelly back. I think Rob Kelly has a big game. So I'm taking Skins on Monday night.